I didn't cry when I found out my husband was cheating on me. I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because in that exact moment, something inside me went completely silent. And silence is far more dangerous than anger. The house was too quiet that night. No TV, no music, no sign of life. Just the faint ticking of the wall clock and the low, constant hum of the refrigerator. It felt wrong. Daniel was never home this early, but his car was parked outside, right there, like it was waiting for me to notice. I stood at the door a second longer than usual, my hand still on the handle. Something in my chest tightened, not panic, not fear, just a strange, heavy awareness, like my body already knew what I was about to walk into. Daniel? I called softly as I stepped inside. No response. I slipped off my heels, placing them quietly by the door. The floor felt cold beneath my feet as I moved forward. Slow, careful. Then I heard it. A laugh. Soft. Feminine. Too comfortable to be a mistake. It came from upstairs. My heart didn't race. That was the strange part. It didn't shatter either. It just paused, like the world had pressed mute on everything inside me. I walked toward the stairs. Each step felt heavier, not because I was afraid, but because I was preparing. The sound came again. A whisper this time. Then another laugh. By the time I reached the top of the stairs, I already knew. The bedroom door was slightly open. Just enough to let the truth slip through. I didn't rush. I didn't hesitate. I simply stepped forward and looked. And there it was. A woman, wrapped in my bedsheet. Her hair messy, her smile relaxed, like she belonged there. Like she had every right to be in my bed. And Daniel, my husband of 6 years, standing shirtless in front of her, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. That look, that ease, that warmth. It wasn't meant for me anymore. For a second, just 1 second, something inside me cracked. A sharp, quiet fracture. But it didn't break me. It changed me. I pushed the door open. They both froze. Her smile disappeared instantly. Daniel turned toward me, his face draining of color so fast it almost looked unreal. Wow, I said calmly, leaning slightly against the doorframe. I didn't realize we were hosting guests. The girl gasped softly, grabbing the sheet and pulling it tighter around her body. Daniel stepped forward quickly. Wait, listen. I can explain. I raised my hand. He stopped. No, I said quietly. You don't get to explain. There was something in my voice. Something unfamiliar. Cold. Controlled. Final. Even I could feel it. Actually, I continued, stepping into the room. You don't get to do anything anymore. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Almost suffocating. I let it sit there. I wanted them to feel it, every second of it. I looked at her. She couldn't have been more than 23. Young. Nervous. Completely out of her depth. Not evil. Not dangerous. Just temporary. What's your name? I asked. She hesitated. Lena. Lena. I repeated slowly. Then I smiled. Not kindly. Not angrily. Something worse. You can keep him. Daniel blinked. What? I said you can keep him. Lena looked confused. Daniel looked relieved. And that's when I knew. He still didn't understand me. Good. Because if he did, he would have been terrified. I turned, walking calmly toward the nightstand. Picked up my phone. Checked the screen like nothing had happened. Wait, Daniel said, following me. You're just leaving? I stopped at the door. Turned slightly. Looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I trusted. The man I built a life with. The man who thought this was the worst thing he could do to me. No, I said softly. I'm not leaving. A pause. I'm starting. His brow furrowed. Starting what? I smiled again. That same quiet, dangerous smile. You'll find out. And then I walked out. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call a friend or my mother. I didn't do anything people expect from a woman who's just been betrayed. Instead, I opened my laptop. There's something about betrayal. It sharpens you, strips away illusions, forces you to see things you've been ignoring. And suddenly, everything started making sense. The late nights, the secretive calls, the unexplained expenses. It wasn't just cheating. It was bigger than that. I logged into an account Daniel didn't know I had access to. His email. At first, it was exactly what I expected. Messages with Lena. Flirty. Cheap. Predictable. Plans to meet. Excuses he used on me. Lies he repeated so often they probably felt like truth to him. But then, I saw something else. A thread. Old. Buried. Different. No emojis. No casual tone. No affection. Just numbers. Attachments. Short, precise messages. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. Something didn't feel right. Then I clicked. And everything changed. Large amounts of money. Transferred repeatedly. From our joint account. To a company I had never heard of. My stomach tightened. This wasn't random. This wasn't careless. This was planned. I opened another tab. Searched the company name. Nothing. No official website. No registration. No trace. A ghost. A shell company. And Daniel, my predictable, cheating husband, was connected to it. I leaned back slowly. Processing. Replaying everything in my head. The sudden business trips. The times he got defensive over small questions. The way he changed his phone password last month. This wasn't just betrayal. This was deception on a completely different level. And I had been living inside it. For the first time that night, I felt something. Not sadness. Not anger. Control. Because now, I knew something he didn't know I knew. And that changes everything. The next morning, I woke up early. Earlier than him. I made coffee. Prepared breakfast. Moved around the kitchen like nothing had happened. By the time Daniel walked in, I was already smiling. Morning, I said softly. He looked surprised. Almost cautious. Hey, he replied, studying my face. About last night. I don't want to talk about it. I interrupted gently. A pause. Then relief washed over him. Clear. Obvious. Disgusting. Yeah, maybe that's for the best, he said quickly. Of course it was. For me. Not for him. I think we both just need some space, I added. He nodded immediately. Yeah, I agree. I almost laughed. He thought he had escaped consequences. He had no idea. He had just stepped into something far worse. That afternoon, I made my first move. Not emotional. Not impulsive. Calculated. I called the bank. Requested full transaction history. Flagged every suspicious transfer. Then I opened a new folder on my laptop. And named it Daniel. Inside it, I started building something. Not evidence. A case. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about control. Power. Precision. And I wasn't going to rush it. I was going to enjoy it. I didn't rush. That was the first rule I made for myself. No impulsive moves. No emotional reactions. Because men like Daniel, they expect chaos. They prepare for anger, for tears, for confrontation. They don't prepare for silence. And silence? Silence gives you time. Time to watch. Time to understand. Time to destroy properly. For the next few days, I became someone else. Not visibly. Not dramatically. But internally, I shifted. I observed everything. The way Daniel checked his phone more often now. The way he avoided eye contact just a little too much. The way he tried to act normal. But overdid it. Guilt is funny like that. It makes people louder in their silence. Working late again? I asked casually one evening. He nodded quickly. Yeah, just a lot going on at the office. Of course there was. I smiled. Don't stay up too late. He hesitated for a second, like he was expecting more. Questions. Suspicion. But I gave him nothing. And that made him comfortable. Which was exactly what I wanted. Because comfort makes people careless. That night, after he left, I went back to my laptop. Opened the folder again. Daniel. I had already mapped out the transactions. Dates. Amounts. Patterns. It wasn't random. It followed a structure. Money moved in cycles. Every 2 weeks. Same amounts. Same receiving account. Clean. Organized. Professional. That's when it hit me. Daniel wasn't just involved. He was part of something bigger. And suddenly, my revenge wasn't just personal anymore. It was strategic. I dug deeper. Accessed his cloud backup. He had synced everything automatically. Careless. Photos. Documents. Receipts. And then, I found it. A file. Encrypted. My pulse slowed. Not faster. Slower. Because instinctively, I knew this mattered. It took me an hour to get in. An hour of trying combinations. Dates. Names. Patterns. Until finally, it opened. Inside was a list. Names. Accounts. Amounts. And one word repeated across multiple entries. Transfer complete. My throat tightened slightly. This wasn't just hidden money. This was laundering. Daniel, my husband, was moving money for someone. Someone powerful enough to stay invisible. I leaned back, staring at the screen. Everything changed in that moment, because now I understood something important. If I played this right, I wouldn't just hurt him. I could ruin him. Completely. The next morning, I acted the same. Coffee. Breakfast. A soft smile. Big day. I asked. He shrugged. Just meetings. Lies came so easily to him now. Good luck, I said. And I meant it, because he was going to need it. After he left, I made my second move. I didn't confront him. I didn't expose him. I followed him. Carefully. Quietly. He didn't notice. Of course he didn't. Because in his mind, I was still the woman who trusted him. He drove across town. Not to his office, but to a building I had never seen before. Industrial. Quiet. Out of place. No signs. No names. Just a locked entrance and tinted windows. Interesting. I parked at a distance. Watched him go inside. He didn't look around. Didn't hesitate. That meant one thing. He had been there before. Many times. I waited. 30 minutes. Then an hour. When he finally came out, he wasn't alone. A man walked beside him. Older. Sharper. Dangerous in a way that didn't need to be loud. They shook hands. Brief. Professional. Then Daniel left. And the man stayed. I watched him for a second longer. Something about him didn't sit right. Not just powerful. Untouchable. I took a photo. Just one. Clear enough. Then I drove away. That night, Daniel came home late. Tired. Distracted. How was work? I asked. Long, he replied. I nodded. Get some rest, I said softly. He looked at me again. Longer this time. You're being really calm about everything. There it was. Suspicion. I smiled. Should I be screaming? He shook his head quickly. No, I expected. Something else. I finished. He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. Because even he didn't know what he expected. But I did. He expected weakness. And what I was giving him was something far more dangerous. Control. That night, after he fell asleep, I picked up his phone. Unlocked it. He hadn't changed the passcode. Another mistake. I opened his messages. Scrolled. Nothing new. Then I checked his email again. And that's when I saw it. A new message. From an unknown sender. No name. No signature. Just a single line. Next transfer needs to be bigger. No delays. My fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Bigger? How much bigger? And more importantly, why now? I put the phone back exactly where it was. Laid down beside him. And stared at the ceiling. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. Because if Daniel was involved in something this deep, then I wasn't just his wife. I was a liability. And liabilities get removed. Slowly. Quietly. Without warning. For the first time since that night, I felt something close to fear. But it didn't last. Because fear can be controlled. And I had already decided what I was going to do. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to confront him, and I definitely wasn't going to play the victim.
No.
If I was already inside this mess, then I was going to use it,
Turn it.
own it, because Daniel thought he had secrets. But he had no idea I was about to become his biggest one. The moment fear disappears, clarity takes its place.
I didn't sleep that night.
Not because I was scared, but because my mind refused to slow down. Every piece was starting to connect. Daniel, the money, the hidden transactions, the unknown man, and now, a demand for a larger transfer. This wasn't small. This wasn't a mistake. This was something dangerous. But danger only matters when you don't understand it. And I was starting to. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't just going to watch anymore. I was going to step inside his world, carefully, without him ever realizing. Daniel left early again. Barely finished his coffee. Didn't even look at me properly.
Good.
Distance made things easier. The second the door closed, I moved. Laptop open. Folder ready. I reviewed everything again. Every transaction. Every file. Every message. Then I created something new. A second folder. This one wasn't labeled with his name. It was labeled leverage, because that's what this was now. Not pain. Not betrayal. Leverage. I printed the transaction records. Saved copies to multiple drives. Uploaded encrypted backups. If something happened to me, this wouldn't disappear. That thought should have scared me, but instead, it made me feel safer. Because now, I wasn't powerless. I was prepared. That afternoon, I went back. The same building. The same place Daniel had visited. This time, I didn't just watch. I walked inside.
Confidence is strange.
Even when you don't belong somewhere, if you act like you do, most people won't question it. The door wasn't locked. That surprised me. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Minimal furniture. Cold lighting. No personal touches. This wasn't an office. It was a transaction space. Temporary. Disposable. I walked further in, listening, watching. Then I heard footsteps. I turned, and there he was. The man from yesterday. Up close. He was even more intimidating.
Calm. Sharp.
The kind of person who didn't need to raise his voice to control a room. His eyes locked onto mine instantly. And, in that moment, I realized something dangerous. He recognized me. Daniel's wife, he said calmly. Not a question. A statement. My heartbeat slowed. Not faster. Because panic would ruin everything. Yes, I replied, just as calm. A pause. He studied me. You shouldn't be here. I tilted my head slightly. Neither should the money in those accounts, I said. Silence. Heavy. Different from before. This wasn't emotional silence. This was calculated. Dangerous. His expression didn't change. But something behind his eyes did. Interest. Careful, he said quietly. You don't understand what you're stepping into. I took a step closer. No, I said softly. I understand exactly what this is. Another pause. And I also understand something else. His gaze narrowed slightly. Daniel isn't as careful as you think. That hit. Not loudly, but precisely. Because I saw it. That tiny shift. Doubt. Just for a second. But that's all I needed. I'm not here to cause problems, I continued. I'm here to offer a solution. Now I had his attention. Fully. Solution, he repeated. I nodded. You need someone smarter. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was evaluating. You're bold, he said. I smiled slightly. No, I replied. I'm necessary. That was the moment everything changed. Because I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was positioning myself. Inside his world. On my terms. The man studied me for a long second. Then finally, he stepped aside. Talk. And just like that, I crossed a line I couldn't come back from. That evening, I came home before Daniel. Sat on the couch. Waited. When he walked in, I smiled. Long day? I asked. He sighed. You have no idea. Oh, I did. More than he could ever imagine. Dinner? I offered. He nodded, distracted.
Perfect.
As he sat there, talking about nothing, lying without even realizing it, I watched him, not as a wife, but as someone studying a target. Every habit, every weakness, every blind spot. Because now, I wasn't just planning revenge. I was becoming it. And the best part? He still thought I was the one who had been betrayed. That night, as Daniel slept beside me, I received a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. We need to meet. I stared at the screen because deep down, I already knew who it was. And more importantly, I knew this wasn't about Daniel anymore. This was something bigger, something darker. And now, I was in the middle of it, not as a victim, but as a player. I didn't reply to the message immediately. That would have been a mistake. People reveal more when they think you're unsure. So I waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. Watched the screen like it might say something more. It didn't. Just 3 words. We need to meet. No name. No explanation. No urgency in the text. But I could feel it underneath. This wasn't a request.
It was a test.
And I had no intention of failing it. I typed slowly.
Carefully.
Time and place. I hit send, then put the phone down. No overthinking.
No second guessing.
Because the moment you hesitate, you lose control. And I had worked too hard to get it. The reply came almost instantly. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., same place. Of course, the building, the one with no name, no identity, no trace. I stared at the message for a moment longer. Then I smiled, because whatever this was, it was moving faster now. And I liked that. The next day felt different, lighter, not because things had improved, but because I wasn't confused anymore. Clarity changes everything. Daniel moved around the house like usual,
Talking.
pretending, existing in a reality that no longer included me. Are you free tonight? He asked casually. I looked up from my coffee, met his eyes. No, I said simply. A pause. Plans? He asked. I shrugged lightly. Just things I need to handle. He nodded, but something about his expression shifted.
Curiosity. Good.
Let him wonder. Let him feel just a fraction of what uncertainty feels like. Because soon, it would be all he had. The entire day passed slowly. Not because I was nervous, but because I was preparing. I chose my outfit carefully. Nothing too bold. Nothing too soft. Neutral. Controlled. The kind of look that doesn't demand attention, but holds it anyway. By 7:30, I was already in the car, driving toward the building. The same quiet streets. The same empty surroundings. It almost felt unreal, like stepping into a different world. A world Daniel had been living in without me. Until now. I parked, sat there for a moment, then stepped out. No hesitation, because hesitation is visible, and visibility is weakness. Inside, the building felt exactly the same.
Cold. Still.
But this time, I wasn't an intruder. I was expected. He was already there, standing near the center of the room, waiting. You're punctual, he said without turning. I walked closer. So are you. He turned then. Same calm expression. Same unreadable eyes. But this time, there was something else. Respect.
Small.
Subtle.
But there.
Do you always walk into dangerous situations this easily? He asked. I tilted my head slightly. Only when I know I have something they need. A pause. Then a faint smile touched his lips. Confidence, he said. No. I corrected. Information. That mattered more. He studied me for a second longer. Then talk, he said. I didn't rush. Daniel is sloppy, I began. His expression didn't change. He's emotional, predictable, careless with patterns. Still nothing. But I'm not.
Now.
He was listening. I've seen the transactions, I continued. The accounts, the cycles. Silence. I know what you're doing. A longer pause this time. And, he asked, and I know he's becoming a risk. That landed. because truth has weight. He's already making mistakes, I added. Bigger transfers. More attention. More pressure. The man's jaw tightened, just slightly. You're assuming a lot, he said. I'm observing, I replied calmly. Another silence. Then he stepped closer. Why are you telling me this? There it was. The real question. Not curiosity. Intent. I met his gaze directly. Because I can replace him. The air shifted instantly. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to know I had just crossed another line. You, he said, almost amused. I didn't react. I'm smarter, more careful, and unlike Daniel, I paused. I don't mix business with emotions. That hit differently, because now, it wasn't just about capability, it was about control. He stared at me for a long moment, measuring, calculating, trying to figure out if I was serious or just reckless. But I wasn't either. I was prepared. You're asking to step into something you don't fully understand, he said finally. I nodded. No, I said softly. I'm asking to take over something that's already falling apart. Silence again. But this time, it felt different. Less like tension. More like consideration. You're not afraid, he observed. I smiled faintly. I am, I said. That surprised him. But fear doesn't control me. That mattered more. Because fearless people are dangerous. But controlled fear? That's lethal. He stepped back slightly. Daniel doesn't know you're here, he said. Of course not. And if he finds out? I held his gaze. He won't. Another pause. Then finally, he nodded once. Not agreement. Not yet. But interest. And that was enough. For now, he said, you watch. I didn't move. You learn, he continued. Still, I stayed silent. And if you're as useful as you think you are, he let the sentence hang. I finished it in my mind. Then I nodded. Understood. Because this wasn't a win. Not yet. This was an entry point, a position, a foothold. And from here, I would build everything else. Rehook. Part 2 continues. That night, when I got home, Daniel was already there, sitting in the dark, waiting. And the moment I walked in, I knew something had changed. Where were you? He asked. His voice wasn't calm anymore. It was suspicious, sharp, dangerous. And for the first time, Daniel wasn't the only one hiding secrets. For a second, just 1 second, I considered lying. Not because I needed to, but because it would have been easy. Out, I said instead, closing the door behind me. Simple, vague, controlled. Daniel stood up slowly from the couch. The room was still dark, except for the faint light coming from the hallway. That's not an answer, he said. I walked past him. Calm, unbothered. It's enough of one. That hit him harder than I expected. Because Daniel was used to control, used to knowing, used to being the one with secrets. And suddenly, that balance was shifting. Since when do you go out at night without telling me? He asked, his tone tightening. I stopped, turned slightly. Since you started bringing other women into my house. Silence. There it was. Truth. Raw. Unfiltered. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Look, I said I'd explain. No. I cut him off again. You said you could explain. A pause. But you never actually did. He stared at me, frustrated now, because you didn't give me the chance. I smiled faintly. No, Daniel, I said softly. I gave you something better. He frowned. What? Time. That confused him. Good. Time to think, I continued. Time to realize what you've done. Another step closer. And time to decide how honest you want to be. His jaw tightened. I am being honest. I held his gaze. Didn't blink. Didn't react. That's your first mistake, I said quietly. The tension in the room thickened. Why are you acting like this? He snapped. You're being different. Different. I almost laughed. You mean I'm not crying? I asked. He didn't answer. You mean I'm not begging you to stay? I added. Still nothing. Or maybe. I stepped even closer now, lowering my voice. You're just uncomfortable because you don't understand me anymore. That was it. That was the moment it clicked for him. Not fully, but enough. Enough to make him uneasy. This isn't you, he said. I smiled. You're right. A pause. It's not. And for the first time, I saw it.
Fear.
Not loud. Not obvious.
But there.
Because the version of me he knew would have been predictable, emotional,
Weak.
and this version? This version was none of those things. I'm going to bed, I said calmly, stepping past him. Just like that? He asked. I stopped at the stairs. Just like that. And I walked up without looking back. That night, I didn't check his phone.
Didn't open my laptop.
I just lay there, thinking, because something had changed.
Not just in me.
In him, he was starting to notice, starting to question. And that meant one thing. I had less time than I thought. The next morning, he was already awake when I came downstairs, watching me.
Carefully.
You're up early, I said, pouring coffee. Couldn't sleep, he replied. Of course not. Guilt keeps people awake. So does fear. We need to talk, he added. I took a sip of coffee. Do we? His expression tightened. Yes. I leaned against the counter. Then talk. A pause. He hesitated, because suddenly he didn't know where to start. Which lie to use? Which version of truth to present? I messed up, he said finally. I nodded. That's one way to put it. I didn't mean for it to happen, he continued. Another nod. That's two. He exhaled sharply. Can you stop doing that? Doing what? That calm thing. I smiled slightly. You mean not reacting the way you want me to? Silence. Exactly. I just want to fix this, he said. I looked at him for a long second. Really looked at him. This man, who thought this was about fixing something. You can't, I said simply. That hit.
Hard.
Why not? He asked, frustration rising. Because you don't even know what you broke. Another silence. And this one stayed longer, because deep down, he knew I was right. You're overreacting, he muttered. There it was. Minimization. The final stage of denial. I straightened. No, I said quietly. You're underestimating. His eyes met mine again. And this time, he didn't look away. But he also didn't understand. And that was exactly where I needed him.
Confused.
Unstable. Unaware. Because while he was trying to fix something already broken, I was building something new. Something he would never see coming. That afternoon, I received another message. Same number. You did well. I stared at it. Then another message followed. Next step soon. My grip on the phone tightened slightly. This was moving faster now. Faster than I expected. Good. Because I was ready. More than ready. I looked up at my reflection in the mirror. For a second, I barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because I felt different. Stronger. Sharper. Dangerous. And the most terrifying part? I wasn't pretending anymore. This wasn't an act. This was who I was becoming. That night, Daniel didn't come home. No message. No call. Nothing. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't worried about where he was. I was wondering if someone had already made a move before I could. Daniel didn't come home that night. No message. No call. No excuse. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels intentional. I sat on the couch for a while, staring at my phone, not calling him, not texting, because this time, I wasn't the one waiting for answers.
He was.
Wherever he was. Because if something had gone wrong, if something had shifted inside his world, then he would realize something very quickly. He wasn't in control anymore. And the thought of that would terrify him. I slept better than I expected. Not peacefully, but clearly. Because by morning, I already knew what I needed to do next. I didn't go looking for him. I didn't check his location. Didn't call his office. Instead, I waited. Because when people disappear like that, they always come back. And when they do, they bring answers with them. Around noon, the door opened. Daniel walked in. And the moment I saw his face, I knew something had happened. He looked different, not physically, but internally. Shaken. Rough night? I asked calmly. He stopped in his tracks, stared at me like he was trying to read something hidden beneath my words. You could say that, he muttered. I nodded slightly. Work?
A pause.
Then he shook his head.
No.
Interesting. So, he wasn't going to lie this time. That meant whatever happened was bigger than his usual excuses. I walked closer.
Slowly.
What happened, Daniel? He hesitated, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty in him. Not guilt, not defensiveness. Uncertainty. I think, he started then stopped. I waited, because silence makes people continue. I think I'm in trouble, he said finally. There it was. The truth.
Raw.
Unfiltered. I tilted my head slightly. What kind of trouble? Another pause. Serious. Of course it was. I stepped even closer now. Then maybe, I said softly, you should start being honest.
He looked at me. Really looked this time.
Like he was seeing me for the first time. You wouldn't understand, he said. I almost smiled. You'd be surprised. Silence. Then he ran a hand over his face. I messed up, he admitted. That seems to be a pattern lately. He ignored that. There's money involved.
I didn't react.
People involved, he added.
Still nothing.
And I think, he swallowed slightly, I think they don't trust me anymore. Now that was important. Because trust, in his world, was everything. And why is that? I asked calmly. He hesitated again. Because something got flagged, he said. My pulse slowed.
Flagged.
Interesting. And you don't know what? I asked. He shook his head.
No.
But they're asking questions now. Of course they were. Because pressure exposes weakness. And Daniel was full of it. What are you going to do? I asked. He laughed bitterly. I don't know. That was the moment. The exact moment. Everything shifted. Because now, he wasn't just hiding things. He was lost. And lost people are easy to control. I stepped closer. Lowered my voice. Then maybe, I said, you should let someone else handle it. He frowned. What do you mean? I held his gaze. Maybe you're not as good at this as you think you are. That hit his ego. Hard. I know what I'm doing, he snapped. I smiled faintly. Do you? Silence. Because deep down, he didn't. And for the first time, he knew it. I can help you, I said softly. That surprised him. Help me, he repeated. I nodded. But only if you stop lying. A long pause. Then finally, he exhaled.
Fine, he said.
And just like that, he started talking. Not everything, but enough. Enough for me to confirm what I already knew. Money laundering, illegal transfers, a network he barely understood himself, and people who didn't forgive mistakes. I listened.
Carefully.
Not as his wife, but as someone collecting information, building strategy, strengthening position. Because every word he said was another piece of leverage. When he finished, the room felt different. He looked lighter, relieved, like he had just shared a burden. That was his second mistake, because he thought I was carrying it with him. But I wasn't. I was using it. I need to fix this, he said. I nodded slowly. Yes, I replied. You do. But not the way he thought. Because while he was still trying to survive this situation, I was already planning how to control it. And him. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, my phone lit up again. Another message. This time, different. He's becoming a problem. I stared at the screen. Then the second message came. And this one changed everything. Are you ready to replace him? I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I just smiled and typed one word. Yes.